Hey, what's up, guys? Shadow Steel here. Welcome back to Railworks Sundays. Yeah, it's been about over a month since I've last uploaded a video, and there's a reason why. Today is September 28th, 2025, and it's kind of a special day for me, as today marks the 23rd anniversary of the final excursion of the Frisco 1522, a 1500 class series locomotive that the Frisco Railroad operated between 1926 to 1951. And she holds a bit of a special place in my heart, so I figured I'd share a scenario I've been working on for the locomotive itself. So, and this is the so-called scenario that I've been working on for God knows how long at this point. I first kind of teased the scenario a while back, and you know, there goes that. All right, good morning. Hope you are ready to put on a show. After sitting in the museum for a little over 30 years, we've got a second chance to operate this beautiful 1500 class locomotive. Let's open the doors and so we can let the passengers board. Then we can continue on with the briefing. Open that up. Put it self-flap there. Okay. Alright, we're good. There we go. Yep, okay. We've got a special guest on board today. For the past few weeks, there's been news about the discovery of a parallel world to our own. And recently, the queen of one of the four nations, along with her entourage, were able to travel between their world and our own. Don't ask me how they did it, but I've been told they want to see what it is like to travel by rail. They are currently riding on Blue Bonnet at the tail end of the train. This is because they would like Wait, what? Hold on, I might have typed that wrong. This is because they can't come This is because the world they come from is still stuck in the medieval times. Apparently, because of this, they are interested in bringing our technology to their world. So let's make sure we put on a good show for them. Open the doors. Turn on the light. And then turn on the flash lamps up there. There we go. We're good. Here's a metro service over there. Everything set up here. That's at the green or white? That's at the white. That's at the red now. There we go. We're good. Good to go. Open the cylinder cock so we can get moving. Our departure time is 9 o'clock, so let's make sure we get everything ready to go here, shall we? So yeah, bit of history about the about my history with the Frisco 1522 in particular. I grew up with a VHS tape. Actually, two different VHS tapes. Both of which were from Greg Scholl Video Productions, who, before he passed away, he was very protective. Or his YouTube channel was very protective of his content. So, a while back, I actually uploaded a long time ago. It was actually, God, I want to say 2023, 2020, 2023, 2022. I uploaded the entire VHS version of the 1988 Excursion video that Greg Scholl Video Productions made of Frisco 1522, and it was one of those situations where once I got it uploaded, and it stayed up for about a month before the Greg Scholl Video Productions channel took it down for copyright reasons, and it was fair. Now, lo and behold, after, I think it was after, it's only been about a month since, about a year since it was re-released on the Diverging Clear Productions YouTube channel or something like that. And they released it later on, I guess because they have a deal with Estate of Greg Scholl's, or like they're releasing old out-of-print DVDs and VHSs on the YouTube channel, and that was one of them. So you can actually watch the full Excursion tape that I had when I was a kid on YouTube now, and I'll link it in the description below. We're about to ready to depart here, and we'll talk more once we get departing. All right, 10 seconds. Okay. It's the brakes. Good to go. Running, we're good. Okay, the cylinder cocks didn't open like I wanted them to, but oh well. So, now that we're moving here, the Frisco 1520, that DVD was just simply labeled, or that VHS was simply labeled as Frisco 1522, and it was the recordings of Greg Scholl during the 1988 Excursion season that the 1522 had, so the first year of operation for her. And she... Well, it's one of those VHS tapes that I have very fond memories of. I actually still have the I actually repurchased the VHS copy later on from eBay. That was what I uploaded to YouTube, and that's because my original VHS tape got eaten up by the old VCR we had and this was like, oh god, when was this? It had to have been in the early 2000s, because I was still in middle school when that happened. I was either in middle school or elementary school or something like that. But that VHS tape was a very big childhood memory of mine. So to see the actual full program on YouTube nowadays, for everyone to watch, like, that's really cool. But that was kind of my first exposure to the 1522. Years later, my next exposure to the 1522 would be during her March 2002 trip between St. Louis to Quincy, Illinois. And it just so happened that was her last trip out east. Me, my dad, and my brother did not know this at the time, but when we chased down the locomotive that day, we actually I just set the reverser down way too much there. We chased it. We caught it at Clarksville, Missouri, is where we caught it, and then we decided to pace it for a little bit. We never got I don't have any videos of that excursion, but Diverging Clear, bringing them up again. Diverging Clear Productions actually has a good DVD called the Frisco 1522, a retrospective, and it features clips from that very excursion. And it's one of the last times, like, that was at the time where they did not really, like, nobody knew that the locomotive would be retired at that point. By the way, we're going through Chicago Union Station here, and you can see we've got Amtrak, the New Orleans coming through. We've also got the Metro service that we passed earlier going into the yard, and a switching move being handled by a BNSF GP38. We got quite a bit of action here, which is kind of nice. We got a lot of action going around. So when we caught it in Clarksville, we chased it down, we paced it for a little bit, and that was the last time I would see it in operation in person. And then about a few months later, in September 28th, 2002, my dad would get the chance to ride behind the Frisco 1522 for the last time. And it was one of those particular situations where no one, like, it was kind of out of the blue. They announced it in June of that year. And as a result, it was like, oh. And apparently from the retrospective DVD, It was mentioned that the incident at the Gettysburg Railroad had a big effect on it, and however, I've actually talked with the crew of the Frisco 5022 themselves on the Friends of Frisco 5022 Facebook group, and they have said that it was kind of the opposite. It was, while that did have an effect long term, it wasn't the only reason. Another particular problem for that, there was quite a bit of problems with the 1522 during her career, all stemming by about the mid-90s. The locomotive itself was a good runner. They tried to keep it in good shape, but starting in the mid-2000s, she kind of had a big run of bad luck. Starting, I want to say 1996. Well, the first sign of bad luck was in October 1990, where she would developed a bearing problem on the lead truck axle, which is right at the front of the locomotive, the front axle. Turns out that bearing, the lubrication lines to that bearing, were so bad, like they had failed on a run between there and the Twin Cities. So it was going to Minneapolis for a series of excursions, which would probably been the only time it would have gone up there, actually, because it never went up that line ever again. It never went up that far north, which is rather unfortunate because that would have been a cool run. That would have been a cool sight to see on these locomotives. But the locomotive itself, we're going to kind of open up the throttle here so we can get moving again. But she developed bearing problems on that October 1990 run, and she eventually had to be sent to Galesburg, Illinois, which is down south of Chicago, I think. So it's one of the biggest shops for the BNSF nowadays. One of their many shops, actually. And the Galesburg shops actually did like a complete overhaul of the lubrication lines and everything to make sure that the locomotive would run fine. About a few years later, she would develop a similar problem. This time, not the fault of the crew reinstalling something wrong, like having something fail on them, but because of a derailment. The 1522 suffered a derailment in, I want to say it was like right. Now, this story is rather crazy, actually, because it's actually told from the retrospective DVD, and it's given the wrong date, mind you. They give the wrong date for that particular run. But she was overhauled in 1998. She had a complete overhaul in 1998, shortly after the Gettysburg Railroad boiler, quote-unquote, boiler explosion. But she got through an entire overhaul that day. She was going to North St. Louis Yard to pull some break-in trains, going to do some break-in runs, pulling a freight train out of the North St. Louis Yard, which is Lindenwood Yard. And I could be wrong on the particular yard depot or whatnot. But she was going around, I believe it was going around a Y, because somebody actually shared the location of where she derailed on I actually asked about this on the Friends of Frisco 1552 Facebook page. Because I just never heard of this until this year. And lo and behold, it was she rolled over a rail. So the rail rolled over, she tipped over didn't tip over on her side, but she basically struck the ground. And what had happened was, there was minimal damage. The drawbar had to be disconnected, that had to be cut up so that they could get the locomotive on the rails. Unfortunately, whoever contracted the crew to get her re-railed had no clue on what they were doing with the steam locomotive and ended up damaging the running gear. And as such, the locomotive lubrication lines, this time to the running gear, so the 8 drivers in the middle there, they started to overheat on run shortly after this derailment. Keep in mind, this was just after they overhauled the locomotive, and there was significant enough damage that they needed to go back in and fix the problem. They actually needed to go back in and go back in and actually repair the damage. They thought they could get by with just doing patch jobs and whatnot, but apparently it was so bad that they couldn't do anything with it. So that was unfortunate. That was in like 98, 99. Then you have, and not only that, but on top of the Gettysburg Railroad, quote unquote, crown sheet failing, you then have that issue, which was causing the FRA to look into the FRA to basically go in and say, like, okay, these steam locomotives need to be much better, much safer, and not be treated like, and basically not be run to death before they blow up. Which, fun fact about the Gettysburg Railroad, they actually recently restarted their operations recently as a tourist operation. And from what I can gather, they're using diesel locomotives now, but they have an interest in like using steam once again. Now, granted, this is under like the Gettysburg Railroad nowadays is under better management, so I could see them actively going about and basically restarting tourist operations. And they were putting a lot of 21st century modernization into this tourist operation, and it's really kind of cool. But yeah, it was one of those situations where the Gettysburg Railroad boiler, like the crown sheet failing on the Gettysburg engine, which, by the way, that locomotive is still around as well. It's now at Sugar Creek, Ohio, as part of the Age of Steam Roundhouse collection. It's never going to see the light of... It's never going to operate ever again, but it's still preserved. They didn't scrap it after the boiler, the crown sheet failed. Instead, they decided to put it as a static display at the Age of Steam Roundhouse, which is really nice. Because you can actually... Because I think they have the the crew cab like the crew, I think you can ask to go inside the cab or something like that, and once you get inside the cab, you can actually look in the firebox, put a light in, and you'll see just this bulge where the firebox crown sheet failed. Alright, we'll be making a short stop just outside of the Cicero Yard, just before Cicero Yard, to allow the Amtrak service number 5 to pass us. They were delayed overnight due to the crew being over hours. Not only that, but the morning rush kept them held back a little longer. Once they cross over to track 2, we will be lined to continue onto track 1. Once we're on it, we should have clear blocks all as far as Downers Grove. All right. I should know what I typed because I'm the one that made this damn scenario. So, all right. Let me shutting off the throttle here a bit, and we're gonna open up the. Gonna try and keep it moving here. I actually had a few ideas for excursion scenarios out of this map, but, you know, this is one of them. But yeah, that derailment and all the other stuff, like insurance costs and everything, that was causing a lot of pain for the crew, the St. Louis Steam Train Association, so they decided to retire the locomotive in September 30th, 2002. And what's even crazier, now I mentioned the Frisco 1522 DVD, that the retrospective from Divergent Clear Productions, which is a great DVD. It's very well put together, very nice, and kind of has a lot of home footage and whatnot from the perspective of her, especially from her early career that is not publicly available. And the one thing that always struck me, and this was actually something that I have trouble watching. The first time I watched it, and I've only watched the DVD once all the way through, the two-part DVD once all the way through, but the actual footage of her sitting at the museum on September 30th, 2002, of them draining the boiler of steam and effectively, like, putting the cap on and everything like that, like, it was heartbreaking. And it's one of those things where it's like, it just took me, like, it kind of broke me down, because that was the locomotive I grew up with. That was the locomotive I had always had fond memories of, thanks to the VHS and videos that I had of her. And to know that she was, when they were like basically putting her to bed, as they were draining the boiler of steam, they were blowing the whistle. And little by little, you could hear that the whistle was slowly like fading out and like not getting enough pressure. And then the final whistle, they show the final whistle blast as the boiler's finally drained, and it's like, it's such a whimper. And it's like very, very heartbreaking, at least for me, because this was my hometown locomotive. This was the pride and joy of St. Louis. It was the spirit of St. Louis, to kind of put it in terms of the Norfolk and Western in a way. The Norfolk and Western, so like the Norfolk and Western 611 is referred to as the spirit of Roanoke. Well, the 1522 is like the spirit of St. Louis. It was a locomotive that, for the most part, was the hometown locomotive. It was the locomotive that showed the pride of what St. Louis was in terms of its railroading heritage. We're coming up to the signal pretty fast. And it was one of those things where it's like, when you actually see the video, when you actually look at it, I mean, I would have loved to put it on the full video here, but it's like, instead I'll like recommend people to buy the DVD so that they can actually like get a good, like, so that they can support Divergent Clear Productions and kind of get a feel for this locomotive. I will link that video, I will link that DVD in the description down below for those of you that are interested in actually buying it. It's a great DVD from a great company. Like, they're kind of like a startup at this point. They're not much of a startup, but they're like, this is the first DVD I got from them. It was like, that is really, really nice. And I'll link the channel down below as well, as they also have like this great channel and everything like that, like all the stuff they do and everything. We're gonna be walking up to the signal here while we come to a stop. Stop. A little bit more on the set there. There we go. There we go. Stopped on. Also, I should point out, this is the first, like, the second scenario I've run with this locomotive with the updated sound pack that I made. If anybody's curious about this particular sound pack, I will also link that in the description down below if you ever want to take a look at it. So, all it requires is the locomotive itself from Machine Rails, and that's linked in the description, in the requirement. So, I'm going to link a whole bunch of stuff. I got to link a whole bunch of stuff for this video, honestly. Because, yeah. If you guys ever, like, this is one of those things. Like, I personally love this locomotive. It's my childhood locomotive. It's like for many people that grew up with Thomas the Tank Engine, this is what I grew up with. This is the locomotive I grew up with. I didn't grow up with Thomas. I grew up with the Frisco 1522. And the reason, by the way, like I said, like the box said, we're waiting for an Amtrak service, which is just now leaving Chicago Union Station. So we're kind of going to be waiting here for a while. But in the meantime, I will talk a little bit more about kind of my like past with this locomotive. But yeah, like I said, the 1522 was what I grew up with. That, the 844, 1218, 819, those locomotives, because the other, I had two VHS tapes. One of the Frisco 1522 in 1988, and then the other was the 1990 NRHS convention from Greg Scholl, which featured all four of those locomotives. Now, to be fair, the VHS I had was not of like the complete tape, but it was called the Marathon of Steam. That was the VHS tape. It was Marathon of Steam Volume 4. And it featured a small segment of the Sierra Railway, I think it was number 28, which I don't think is out there anymore, like that particular segment or anything like that. And the other part of it was the 1990 NRHS convention, between that all four locomotives take part in. And that segment is the complete segment, but the other segment, the segment from the Sierra Railway, was like, I don't think that whole segment's at all available on YouTube or anywhere really. So if you find a copy of that VHS and everything, like, that's kind of fun, because it kind of gives a little bit of history of the Sierra. It's a Greg Scholl video. It's going to be good. But yeah, that was kind of the VHS that I grew up with, along with the 1988 Excursion tape from Greg Scholl. And yeah, it's like, like the 1522 is the locomotive I grew up with. So this locomotive is a very important part of my childhood. So actually getting a chance to play a scenario set in the 1980, set with the locomotive in operation and everything, it's really nice. Anyway, we've got a little bit of time here while we wait for the Amtrak service. The Amtrak service should be right over. There it is, coming out of the yard now. It's heading out that way. Should be coming down the line now. I mean, we shouldn't be that far away from the Amtrak service. Oh, here he is. I hear him. This was a common sight for the 1522 later on in its career. It actually had a tendency to be overtaken by various passengers and freight trains. So actually having the Amtrak service kind of pass it is kind of a nice little touch there, if you ask me. Almost let the fire drop, but that's good. The pressure's building up again. There it goes. Set the reverser back up. Should get the clear soon. Once we see that signal change, we should get the clear. Alright, let's release the brakes so we can get things moving here. There we go, cleared ahead. Big boom. We've got the clear, diverging clear. Funny. Alright, off we go. Use the reverser a bit. Now we're crossing over to track 1. It should be kind of fun. Won't need to worry about water for a bit. See what we can do with the speed. Alright, let's do it. A little bit of water to kind of drain the boiler pressure a bit. Alright, now we're moving. Now it's time to let the horses out and let it race. Alright, we're on our way. That's enough water. Fire going again. There's our BNSF manifest that we had earlier, that I was talking about earlier. Only going 25 into this yard, or this siding here. Might be able to do something here. Might be able to get another video here. We can get a good shot of the whole thing coming through. Let's do... There, I guess? Maybe? I don't know. Losing boiler pressure again. That's probably because we're blowing our safeties again. There's the light on the head. Front end. $32. This might be a fun end card. Oh, see, I saw the car wiggle there as it rolled over the track. It's just very faint, but you can see it. I wonder how far we can get it. There's a, that car, that CN&W car, is actually something I made. That's probably good enough anyway. We're probably going to get the train to move a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Traveling at 47 miles an hour, our boiler pressure has dropped about 180. And we need more water in the boiler, fucking hell. Jesus. So there's our BNSF intermodal train. There's a BNSF intermodal train here, which is being led by 6 units. Kind of cut down the throttle a bit so we can get some pressure back. There's our unit. And now we're on our way. We're racing. We're off to the races, boys. I know we have there are quiet zones here, but who gives a fuck? It's a steam excursion. People want to hear the whistle. There's a metro service over there. I think it is. Is it? Or did the metro service pass us already? I think I understand now why there are quiet zones. With how many crossings there are in this frickin' place, man? Jesus. Not enough water in the boiler. That should be fine. Let's see what we can do with this locomotive, honestly. Thought that guy was going to run the crossing. Alright, off we go. We're on our way. Going about 53 miles an hour. Let's see if we can get up to 55. Oop, we drained the boiler again. The water level's down too. There's only the one plat. No, there's a different platform right next to it. Okay. Nice little racetrack here. The racetrack is always fun to kind of get the locomotive up to speed and whatnot. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to do a scenario on this route with the Frisco 1522 was actually kind of twofold. One, the racetrack was kind of the ideal situation to get a lot of speed out of this locomotive, so you could get a lot of speed, a lot of power out of it. And two, I was trying to recreate, originally I wanted to recreate the Nickel Plate Road 765's excursion of the Juliet rockets. But since that particular route doesn't exist, I was going to use the racetrack rocket, the Aurora rocket, I guess you could say. Which I might still do long term, honestly. That's enough water in the boiler. Another station coming up here. There should be an Amtrak regional service that we're coming up to as well. It's Laverne. LaGrange, I mean LaGrange, not Laverne. Laverne's back behind us. We're at 55 miles an hour, not bad. If we can get this service to 70 miles an hour, that'd be kind of cool. But with 69.5-inch driving wheels, I don't think we'll ever get it up to 70. There's the Amtrak regional service coming out. Oh, he's already crossed over. What the hell? Alright. Oh, because he's like... Okay, I got it now. He stopped. So that service is supposed to stop at LaGrange, Illinois, which is right here, up ahead. And the locomotive had just made a stop already, and he's crossed over to the track one. Got the freight car sitting out there. I tried to make this as detailed as I possibly could, but not much I could do with it. Another stop coming up here, LaGrange, Illinois. This is where the EMD shops were at one point. Not here anymore, but fun. Whoops. Oh, I didn't blow up the crossing. Oh. We'll be making a short stop at Downers Grove to grease the rods and service the locomotive. We also have a BNSF intermodal freight, that will have to overtake us before we can continue. All right. Okay, set the water in the boiler. Trying to get as fast as we can go, but that's going to take some effort here, boys. I'm going on an upgrade now. I do like all the small towns and whatnot out here. Like the small, like this town, railroad town kind of feel here. We're coming up to Western Springs, which is actually a good shot for photos. All right, that's enough water in the boiler. I gotta make sure that whoops, wrong button. I'll make sure that BNSF freight is not going... Okay, he's already on the track. He is flying! He should have a red block, though. Yeah, he's got a red. The BNSF is going to get through here. Now, here's Western Springs. Clear through. And we're draining our boiler again. Alright, looks like we won't reach 60, but we'll definitely get close. Actually, we probably don't need to fill up with water here. Get the boiler going up. You want to know what fast exhaust sound like? This is just... I love the fact that one of the things that Machine Rails did with this locomotive, they made the flags move. So when you're traveling at high speed, they actually flap around in the breeze. Now it is kind of funny because if you go backwards, they'll still flap they'll still flap in the opposite direction. So it's kind of funny to see that going. 56. We've lost speed here. Probably because we're all going upgrade. Oh, smoke. What's that smoke? That's a chimney. Little industry over there. Okay, fair enough. Going through. There goes the boiler pressure again. Coming through another town. I do wonder if I'm going to be able to get her up to 60 miles an hour before we hit LaGrange. Or Downers Grove, rather. LaGrange is behind us again. Keeping the boiler at a decent level is probably going to be key here. Okay, crossing up ahead. Alright, we're clear. Clear, clear. Enough fire in there. Gotta fill up the boiler again. A lot of whistling and bells. But that's what you want. I'm going over the highway there. Whee! How much further we got? We got 3 miles? Let's see if we can make it to 60 here, boys. We're dropping the boiler pressure like crazy there. We're probably not going to get 60. Unless we get the tailwind and everything on behind us. That was 20 seconds, right? Coming around the corner. We got 2 miles to go. Inside out, 2 miles away. Yeah, I definitely know why they put quiet zones out here. That's for damn sure. Yeah, we'll only reach about 78 miles an hour at most. Or, not 78, 58. We're coming up to Downers Grove. We're not far from it now. 2 miles away. I believe there's a metro service just up ahead of us, too. That's the last service we're going to be overtaking here. Actually, I don't need that open that much. Going through another station here. There it is, Downers Grove, right ahead. Alright, boys. We have finished up the run at high speed here. Probably the shortest video I've made so far. Okay, we're at 56 miles an hour. We're going to kind of shut her down here. Get the locomotive coast in. Or at least kind of like glide her into the station here at high speed. Alright, get the brakes on. £10 set on her. Got it. £10 set. Oh wow, we dropped significantly. Alright, this is the signal or we're gonna stop here. I put on too much brake pressure there. So we are arriving at 44. Our expected arrival time is at 47. Or no, we're supposed to arrive there at 47. All right. Some water in the boiler. Drain some water out of the cylinder cock so we don't blow a cylinder head. All right, boys, we've made it. Oh, there goes the safeties again. Got too much fire and we got too much fuel in the firebox. All right, here we come. Oh, the metro service has not passed. There should be a metro service up here, but I guess we're a little early, so. Yeah, we're a bit early. It's fine. £10 set, that should do it. Release the brakes. Got the smoke kind of billowing on our face. There's the metro service. It's coming in right now. There she is. And I see that the cars have stopped. I want to pass the signal, so just let it stop. Alright, we're stopped. There's the metro service out there. Alright, that's good. I'll pause here so we can actually get a shot of all these sitting out here. That's actually a very impressive shot right there, I gotta admit. Yeah, we'll do that. This is Downers Grove right here. Bang! Go. That's our thumbnail there. That's one of many thumbnails. There we go. All right, we're here. We have a bit of time before we have to head out. Why did I spell? Oh, before we need to depart again. After all, I heard that the Queen wants to ride in the cab for a bit. Can't say I blame her. It's quite a different experience riding on the footplate at speed and riding on a passenger car. Alright. Well, that's it, boys. Destination reached. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this video. It's a very special video for me. I spent twice. Great. But yeah, like and comment down below. Subscribe if you guys want more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.